Why did US founding father Benjamin Franklin's London home conceal hundreds of human bones in a pit in the basement? My previous video on Benjamin Franklin and the West Wickham Hellfire Club highlighted some of the stranger antics of the highly influential American politician, link in the description and pinned in the comments. However, despite these irregular nocturnal activities, it is still surprising to learn that Franklin's London home featured the remains of a number of dead people in the cellar. So, why did the founding father have bones in his basement? Was he a cold-blooded mass killer? Or is there a more innocent, if slightly ghoulish, explanation? Well, in 1998, the first conservation work began at Craven Street, the site of the Smart residence. It was interrupted by the discovery of a large array of human and animal bones under the floor of what is today the house's seminar room, which was originally the garden in Franklin's day. The discovery required legal investigation, and a coroner was called in to ascertain the nature of the remains and make a ruling. The coroner determined that the bones were more than 100 years old, and so a formal inquest was not required. Following the legal proceedings, the custodians of the house invited Dr. Simon Hilson and colleagues from London's Institute of Archaeology at University College London to study the bones. The researchers provided intriguing historical insights. From a 1 metre wide, 1 metre deep pit, more than 1,200 pieces of bone were retrieved. This macabre collection might appear to point a finger of suspicion at Franklin, but it turned out the bones were the remnants of an anatomy school run from the house by William Hewson, son-in-law of Franklin's landlady, Margaret Stevenson. Hewson, who married Margaret's daughter Polly in 1770, is best known for his research on blood and the lymphatic system. He isolated the key protein in the blood clotting process, fibrinogen, and called it coagulable lymph. Hewson trained in Edinburgh and studied with famous anatomist William Hunter, becoming a partner in Hunter's school in Great Windmill Street, London. Hewson subsequently had a falling out with Hunter, and Franklin served as a mediator. Franklin noted, "I should think it no trouble to hear their complaints if I could be of the least use in accommodating their differences. But since that was not likely, I could only wish, as I had a regard for both, that they would go on to the end of their term as quietly as possible, since that would be most to the credit of both." In due course, Hewson opened his own anatomy school at Craven Street. The human remains derived from more than 15 individuals and showed dissection marks from surgical instruments. Animal remains were found primarily in the front of the house in the old coal depositories. A human femur bone had been cut cleanly, probably demonstrating the process of amputation. This was a valuable skill when there was little knowledge of sterilisation. The skull pieces had circles drilled out from a trepanning device. Trepanning was primarily used to relieve pressure on the brain. Relatively few surgical operations had any likelihood of success, however, and invasive procedures were often made more difficult by the possibility of major blood loss and infection, as well as the lack of anaesthetic, which was not used until 1846. Key evidence in linking the Craven Street bones to Hewson's anatomy school is a portion of a turtle spine and mercury found in the bone pit. In an experiment conducted in 1770 at the Royal Society, Hewson showed the flow of mercury through a turtle to highlight the lymphatic system. With help from Franklin, Hewson was elected to the Royal Society and received their Copley Medal for his work. Other items linked to anatomical study were also found in the bone pit, including microscope slides. In Georgian England, the practice of anatomical study became increasingly popular. Limited hospital teaching left a gap filled by private schools like Hewson's. They also satisfied a growing interest in public health, and talks by experts were financially successful. Despite this, procuring bodies for dissection was not easy, and it did not become a fully legal practice until 1832. It's likely, therefore, that some of Hewson's cadavers came from the so-called resurrectionists, body snatchers who shipped their wares along the Thames under cover of night. It's inconceivable that Franklin did not know this. Anatomy was a hazardous area of study. During a dissection in 1774, Hewson contracted septicemia and died, aged just 34. As Franklin wrote to his wife Deborah, "Our family here is in great distress. Poor Mrs. Hewson has lost her husband, and Mrs. Stevenson her son-in-law. He died last Sunday morning of a fever which baffled the skill of our best physicians. He was an excellent young man, ingenious, industrious, useful, and beloved by all that knew him." She is left with 2 young children and a third soon expected. He was just established in a profitable growing business, with the best prospects of bringing up his young family advantageously. Polly would eventually move with her children to Philadelphia to be close to Franklin after the close of the Revolutionary War. While living in Craven Street, Franklin wrote to Sir Francis Dashwood, owner of the infamous Hellfire Caves, and expressed his hope for a reconciliation between the British Empire and the American colonies. On the 26th of July 1770 he wrote to Dashwood, "I heartily wish your lordship would urge the plan of reconciliation between the 2 countries, which you did me the honour to mention to me this morning. I am persuaded that so far as the consent of America is requisite, it must succeed. I am sure I should do everything in my power there to promote it." Franklin had hoped that America would develop within the British Empire, and by its growth become the centre of the empire without struggle or bloody revolution. Previously, alarmed at the danger from the French and the Native Americans in the West, Franklin had written his famous Plan for a Union of the English Colonies in America. However, this was turned down in London in 1754. In the following years, the undeterred Franklin strove to maintain the harmonious relations between the colonies and the home government. When in London, he frequently attended parliamentary debates on American colonial affairs. At one dramatic appearance, he answered 174 questions. As the situation worsened, Franklin aided William Pitt and his associates in their efforts at conciliation. The plan for reconciliation drawn up by Franklin and Sir Francis Dashwood, of which little evidence survives, formed part of his efforts. Unfortunately, these efforts were unsuccessful, and on his return to Philadelphia in May 1775, he became more and more involved in the struggle for independence. Conciliation, in Franklin's opinion, had come to be no more than a vain hope. And the rest is, as they say, history. But that's it for this video. Don't forget to like, share, and most importantly subscribe. And you can also support the channel on Subscribestar via the link in the description, or via YouTube Super Thanks. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.